So the vote today fell mostly along party lines, 51 to 44. What is your comment on the outcome? Why did the right to IVF bill fail yet again?
Well, because the majority of my Republican colleagues, with the exception of two, Senators Murkowski and Collins, kowtow to Donald Trump. And they stick to the party line as long as he tells them to vote a certain way. That's what they do. They claim to support IVF, and yet here's a bill that is very benign in basically setting up the right for people to access IVF without actually requiring you to seek IVF. And yet they refuse to vote yes on it. And so I'm deeply disappointed that my colleagues who have been claiming to support IVF actually voted against that right for Americans today.
Rick Scott also sponsored his own IVF bill earlier this week, and that was blocked by one of your colleagues in the Senate. Is there a possibility of compromise with your Republican colleagues to bring a bipartisan bill to the Senate floor?
Well, Rick Scott's bill, just so you know, just talks about providing insurance coverage, but doesn't actually talk about Americans having the right to access IVF. This is what my Republican colleagues are doing. They're putting out red herrings out there so that people think that there is a balance here. There isn't. Until Republicans deal with either establishing a statutory right at the federal level for people to access reproductive technology, or they start banning these bills that declare that a fertilized egg is a human being with equal rights to the woman who's going to carry that egg, then you can't actually support IVF and also support fertilized eggs being human beings at the same time. Because in the process of performing IVF, some fertilized eggs that are non-viable that would cause miscarriages have to be discarded. And in those states where fertilized eggs are considered to be human beings, that would be manslaughter. And so Republicans can go to the floor like Rick Scott all they want and say, hey, I'm going to mandate insurance coverage. It's like saying, I'm going to mandate that insurance providers provide insurance for cars, but you're not allowed to buy a car. What's the point of having insurance coverage for something you can't access? And so this bill is that compromise. This bill simply says Americans have the right to access assistive reproductive technology if they want it. It doesn't require you to access it. It just says you can access it if you want. It's very simple, and yet they voted against it.
I see. So in June, some of the commentary from the Republican side about the bill was that it came forward too fast and there needed to be more time to process. What was the primary objection today? Is it those fertilized eggs that get fertilized in the in vitro process and possibly need to be discarded, or is it another aspect of the bill that raised the most objections?
None of my Republican colleagues will actually say, because they don't have a reason. They don't have a reason. Their reason is Donald Trump told them not to vote for it, and so they're not going to vote for it. Their reason is that they are deeply afraid of Project 2025 and all of the anti-abortion groups out there whose fundamental push is to define a fertilized egg as a human being. That is who they are afraid of. They're really not supportive of IVF and the right for people, for families to access reproductive technologies. And in fact, if you talk to a lot of the right to life groups, they will actually say that they don't support IVF, or they will say, well, every fertilized egg, regardless of whether or not it will cause a miscarriage, should be implanted. And that is medically malpractice.